Hey, everybody, welcome to the Friday Hangout, where we talk about digital marketing with our fabulous panel and thought leaders in the industry. Today on the show,
Who's that?
we have Kathy Cruz, and she's going to join us and talk about the automotive industry and social. Also on the panel, the fabulous and wonderful Adam Helway. Say hello, Adam.
Hello, Adam.
We love Adam.
The stunning and handsome Steve Farnsworth.
Thank you.
And thankfully, Kathy Cruz, right, locked in between the two of them, who's here to join us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about
the effervescent
you, Kathy?
Janet Fouts, too.
Oh, yeah, and I'm Janet Fouts. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you, Kathy, and what you do, who you work with?
Cruise control, go for it.
Cruise control, yes. I was born with the right name, right? I'm a car gal through and through. My grandfather was a dealer in the 50s in downtown Los Angeles. I've spent my life managing car dealerships, and about a little over 5 years ago or so, I decided to get into social media, online reputation for car dealers, franchise car dealers mainly, and manufacturers, helping train and get the good word out about social.
You probably know Cal Worthington then, right? I mean, know of him.
I actually was at his memorial. He's one of my idols, actually.
I actually grew up watching him on TV, and for anybody who doesn't know Cal Worthington, in Southern California, he used to, and here's my dog Spot, and he'd walk on a lion or a rhino or some other wild animal. And he's a fixture of late-night TV, and kind of doing this cowboy thing. And I actually had an opportunity to meet him in real life through family connection. He came over to hang out on Christmas Day with his grandson. And I was like so excited to have a conversation with him, and he wasn't interested in having a conversation at all. So I was like, damn it, damn it.
Well, that's a really good segue, Steve, because one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was how people perceive the automotive industry, and you know, some people have been really big characters, and that's how they brand themselves. But when you're dealing with social media, what are some good ways for people to be branding their dealerships?
Well, I feel like it comes from within, and so, you know, make sure your culture is ready for prime time first and foremost. Next, I think as far as branding goes, it's really dealers are local businesses at their core, and whatever you can do to communicate what it is about your dealership that makes you unique and why people buy from you, that's really gonna help with regard to any kind of marketing, but especially with social.
Okay, so it's really more, is it more about localization? Is that kind of where you go?
Yes. There's kind of a strange kind of place right now, because a lot of the manufacturers want to kind of homogenize the message that dealers, you know, bring, whether it's you know, a high line like Lexus or BMW, or it's something like a Toyota or a Honda or a Nissan, and that's fine. That kind of content's fine, but I think what's really going to engage the local market, which is obviously their customer, is going to be content that's more based around things going on locally, things going on inside the dealership, what I like to call hyper-local content, related to employees and customers, and just really letting other people see what it's like to do business with the dealership. Because there is, you know, I just spoke at a conference, and we got on the subject about, you know, we have to admit that we have a stereotype to overcome. And so, when that happens, you know, you've got people tend to not want to go to a dealership no matter what. So you have to make it, you know, if you want people to come to your dealership, you have to make it easy and helpful and useful and awesome.
So I'm curious, in terms of, like, I would think that that auto dealership has kind of an interesting kind of in between. It's a consumer brand, but it also has probably certain elements of B2B in the sense because of the price tag, and so not everybody's going to want to always be engaged or a best friend of necessarily a car dealership. Yes. So kind of given that, can you talk about the, you know, how you suggest, kind of what you just said, going a little bit deeper. You don't want to like go, hey, Susie, it's good to see you again, because you're not necessarily going to always have Susie. You probably have a couple Susies and a Bob and whatever, but you have people that kind of come in and out of that thing. So how do you as a strategy, how do you tell dealerships to engage with socially with that?
Well, for our clients, we go through a brand discovery where we talk about what it is about them that makes them unique, why people buy from them, and really that's a kind of a hurdle that you haven't really, dealers haven't really had to think like that. I used to be a dealer, and you just never had to think like that. You had someone doing your marketing and advertising for you. So getting over that, like identifying why people actually buy from you, not because you have the lowest price or because you've been in business for a period of years, because many people have been, many dealers have been. So identifying that, and then identifying also who your ideal customer is. And in automotive, and I think this is probably the same for a lot of other industries, is that salesmen especially tend to think everyone is their client, and that may be the case, but the more you can define and know your customer and what their needs are and what questions they might have, the better your content's going to be. So
let me just say, so are you saying that really what you're looking at is people who are engaging when they're starting to think about a car, and that's kind of the time element that you're dealing with? I mean, other than kind of more general things, people who really do follow you a long time, but you're saying kind of keep things, it's more about when people are starting to engage with you because they're thinking about buying a car.
Well, I have to give kudos to Avinash for this, because I blogged about it a few months ago, but he talked about that see, think, and do consideration stage of customer behavior. So I kind of took that and made it automotive specific. So there's the C customer, those are people that buy and service cars, and the think customer, those are people who buy and service cars and are thinking they might need to, and then the do customer, who are people who buy and service cars, think they might need to, and actually are ready to take action today or soon. And I say your content, wherever it may be, needs to address each one of those consideration stages. So yes, we know really well how to attract that do customer, because we've been doing that for a long, long time. But the challenge comes with the see and the think customer. And so the think customer you could attract with things like, posts that, if you think about someone that's thinking about buying, then what kind of information are they looking for? The C customer is more like someone that you've attracted them in some way to, let's say, your Facebook page, or they followed you on Twitter. You've attracted them in some way, and now it's just your job to keep them attracted, and whatever that may be.
Well, and sort of digging in that a little bit more, never before have we had the opportunity to leverage things like social media to have an ongoing relationship with folks, and considering the buying cycle, I'd say probably depending on the family and how many drivers you have in your family, you likely don't purchase a car more than once every few years, sometimes much longer than that, depending on the average customer. And so do you find that folks are now using social media to do, I see it as being useful for two things. One is to create relationships with those folks, and those relationships have to be meaningful and ongoing so that you're around at the right time. And I want to follow up after that, but how does a dealership, if that's indeed what's happening, how does a dealership create an ongoing relationship with somebody who may not even have a car on their radar at the moment?
Well, it's important to also interject that while it is every couple, 3-4 years or longer, it's actually the stats are longer now, in between buying intervals, there is the service aspect of things. And that's really where dealerships make their money anyway. So staying connected to that customer that needs to come in for service is a lot, shall we say, I guess, I don't know if it's necessarily easier, but there is a lot more chances to connect with that customer. So your question was, how do you stay in touch with the customer that's maybe not ready to buy just now?
Is there almost, I mean, I say this, almost anybody could be considered. Once you know your customer, that customer exists, whether they're at the moment ready or not. You guys may include in your customer personas sort of where they are in the process, but I'm sure that there's a lot of folks, especially when you were talking about connecting with folks who are local, creating relationships with those potential customers that are local, so that when they do decide to go out and buy a car, that you're top of mind. You've already created a relationship. Is that something that you suggest putting some effort into, and then ultimately is social media one of the biggest players in that?
I definitely say put some effort into it. I think the best way to do that, if you're a dealership or maybe even any local business, is to leverage your employees and your salespeople and train them on how to actually network using social media, which is, social selling.
And actually from there, right, you've got them in the door, so they've thought about you, they've come and they're engaging with you. Now, are you leveraging social media, or do you recommend folks you leverage social media to understand that particular customer even more? So it's not just about getting them in the door and using it as a communication tool, sort of somewhat en masse, but understand who that is. Who is Kathy Cruz? What are the things maybe she's talked about before, or colors she's into, or something that will allow the salesperson to have some insight into how to communicate and talk with this person now that they're face to face.
Yeah, exactly. The showroom floor is, for them, a lot during the day and night, can be very lonely and quiet, and you can take advantage of that time and use social to network with people and get to know who your network is. And I think a huge component, while we were talking a second ago about content, is helping in some way have your salespeople be either contributing to your blog, or there's an actual tool out there that will let a dealership have a blog, and then the salespeople will have their individual blogs. And it also ties into online reputation. It will actually let the dealership or the salesperson collect information from the customer right at the sale and turn it into a blog post, and then ask them to actually duplicate that onto one of the online ratings profiles, wherever they use.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So if you incorporate as much as you can, because each one of those salespeople can be, they're like teachers. And if you can, as the manager of those people, if you can identify where their strengths are, maybe it's in writing, maybe not, maybe they're good in front of a camera, maybe they're great at taking pictures, and just putting some intention on leveraging your staff with regard to content and making it useful as much as you can, even if you're not in the business, in the market for a car. I think if you're perceived as helpful and useful, I think someone will think of you when it's time to buy.
That's a theme definitely over the last couple of years, is utilizing your entire team for content and engagement, whereas in the past it was relegated to sort of the folks who were designated with that job.
Yeah.
I actually just a quick follow-up question regarding, you said talking about blogging. I have to say that I'd be hard pressed if someone says, "Hey, we want to do a blog for the car dealership. What should we be blogging about?" I would go, I could come up with about 2-3 things, and I think I would hit my bandwidth right about there. What kinds of things do you see that are effective for blogging that both the people want to read relative to a dealership, that isn't just like springtime, make sure you check your fluids and your brakes, or it's wintertime, make sure you check
That's
your
what my doctor
fluids and
blogs
brakes.
about, by the way, as well. Just to
Somebody probably, we should jump in there and say that Steve's car hasn't been maintained in a long time, from what I hear, so maybe that's why he doesn't see anything.
So
maybe it might be a blog post about how to get your car on a nice service schedule.
the 3 things you should do on a regular basis, or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds very much like the whole, what are the top 10 questions that somebody asks on search engines or Quora or whatever, and making sure that you flesh out some really nice responses to those. Yeah.
But those are all great. But what do you blog beyond that, though? I mean, because that's
there's plenty. Yeah.
Like what?
Well, tap into. There's a lot of fear around buying vehicles. Okay, so and again, leveraging the people that are on the front lines. Ask them if maybe you're the editor of the blog, let's say, and you've got 10 salespeople. You ask them what are your customers' 3 most frequently asked questions, and they provide those, and then you answer each one of those with a blog post. Okay, so there's that component. And then I'm a big advocate of course, you're blogging for search as well. So there is the keyword aspect of it always, but also I think it's really important to spotlight or show the human side of salespeople, because again, that fear. I've been in the car business my whole life, and every person I usually help people buy cars. You come to me and you need to buy a car. I know where to go and where to. Sometimes I have to hand carry it through the process, but sometimes I don't. But people have always asked me lots of questions because there's a fear, and truly there's just been a study out that every bit of research about any part of the buying process is done online, and the only real thing that happens is when they come into the dealership is they come to buy. So it's just about answering any question that you might ever have, and there's lots, believe me.
And what about using blogging or social media as an aspect of customer service? I mean, is that a way to develop a relationship and bring more people into the dealership so they're doing maintenance?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, there was I have a client in Jackson, Tennessee, and an elderly lady walked in the showroom, or I think she walked in the service drive, and she was lost. She said, "Can somebody help me find my way home?" And she actually lived around the corner from the dealership, but she had just forgotten that. So the general manager and the sales manager got in a car, drove her to her house, and she was very grateful, and it was a really cool story. So they took a picture of it and they blogged about it. So so that, there's stories about service. I always talk about raving fans. Trying to, because when you're dealing with employees, it's always about what's in it for me, and typically very much more, certainly with salespeople, but salespeople tend to be, they don't stay at one dealership as a rule. Some do, there's a lot that do, but a lot that don't. But service advisors, the people that you meet in the service drive when you go to have your car serviced, they tend to stay where they are, and they have anybody that's been in that position for longer than a couple years has got some raving fans, and those people are kind of the advocates, the people that they've helped out in some, maybe they saved them on the side of the freeway, they sent a tow truck to get their car, and they're forever connected to the dealership. And there's lots of people like that, and nobody really knows that. There's just that stereotypical, like, I hate the dealer thing, and having lived it in my life, there's way more raving fans than there are people that are, negative about dealerships.
And it's always the negative ones that pop up more. They're the more vocal, perhaps. But so then that brings another question. Really, you see it across the board on companies that have corporate blogs, and then they let people blog for them. When those employees move on, and in an instance like this where the employees tend to be kind of transitory, how do you deal with that from the dealership standpoint? And do you advise people to blog for the dealership, or do you let them have their own blogs and develop their own brands?
Yeah, in this one particular tool that is available, it kind of covers that part. If the salesperson does leave, then that content is property of the dealership. So
they're blogging on their own blog that actually is sort of an offshoot of the dealership's blog initially. Anyways, it's not like they've got their own website and Steve Farnsworth, the salesman at the local Honda dealer, he doesn't have an independent blog outside of that Honda dealer. It's just an extension of that, right?
Why I got to be a Honda dealer? Why I'm not a Lexus dealer or a Mercedes dealer?
Mercedes for sure.
Does Pinto? Is Pinto still being made?
Oh, nice. It's a Ford Pinto, but thanks for playing.
A Gremlin.
I'm sorry, Kathy.
Adam, in that illustration, yes, it's a WordPress kind of like umbrella blog kind of.
Multi-user or something,
Yes.
right?
And that works, but there's also, because some dealerships haven't really adapted or accepted the idea of blogging and social media and content marketing. So some salespeople, many have said to me, I mean, I probably get an email at least once a week from a salesperson that says, you know, I just can't wait for an up to walk on the lot anymore. I need to create my own leads. And there are some people out there that are doing just an awesome job. There's a guy named Mike the Car Guy that's just doing great. He's got a blog. He's everywhere.
Anybody you add the car guy to the end, they must be doing something right, right?
Exactly.
Well, and I actually wanted to go there a little bit, Kathy. So, what are some sort of out-of-the-box examples or interesting examples, or something that you think is cool that you've seen either a dealership or maybe an independent or an individual salesman do?
Individual salesperson like Mike Carrera. He's Mike the Car Guy. You can Google him. He's great. He's been on social for about maybe longer. It might be since 2006. But
does he sell Porsches? Sorry, had to
say that again.
Mike Carrera, does he sell Porsches?
No, he actually deliberately and very thoughtfully looked for a dealership that was more in tune with his kind of sense about creating leads online. Mm-hmm. And so he's at a Ford dealership here in Southern California. He's the e-commerce director, so he does an awesome job. He blogs, and he's everywhere, really. And to show you the example, in fact, I talk about him when I just did a speech on social selling. And the result of him, he's been working there since November. And because of his presence and the hard work that he does and the good managerial skills, because he's got a team that work for him, they've actually doubled their car sales, their units, from last quarter, 2013, to 2014 first quarter, doubled
Wow.
their number of cars they sold. So, yeah. And then there's another guy, as a good example, there's a guy, Kevin the Jeep guy, Kevin McCarthy. He's got his own blog. He's one of those that kind of couldn't find a dealership to really take him in and like really support what he was doing, so he just decided to do it on his own. And he's good at video marketing, so he does a lot with that. And he's got a nice tagline. I think it talks about, I think it says Nikki's husband, Lala's daughter, and your Jeep guy. And he does this thing called the topless weather report from the Jeep that has the top down, and he's great. He's just great at
That's actually pretty clever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. So turning this around a little bit, let's say I want to go buy a car. And we all know about using the internet to go buy a car, but how can I use social to maybe get myself a better situation, a better price, a better dealership? Is there some kind of tactics that I can, on the other side of that, I can leverage people who are being social, dealership being social, as a way to find a better situation for myself?
Well, I think that for sure you're going to want to look at their Facebook page, see if they have, and again, it's if the customer's using Facebook and they go on Facebook and there's a nice presence on Facebook, that's going to establish some connection. If there's a crappy presence, then not so much. Same with Twitter, same with wherever you might frequent as where you prefer to go. But then I also think I just came off this conference, and like the numbers are like in the mid-90s about people that are very influenced by online reviews, and it's not just people that are friends with them, maybe on Yelp or on Google, but it's people that they don't know, that they still are very, they look at the reviews as people like them, so they're still very trustworthy. So
was that Mike the Car Guy calling?
No, it wasn't.
So I just want to ask you one last question. In terms of, oh my God, I just had a brain cramp. I forgot.
Oh no.
Well, and so if I could jump in,
my way out of that.
if I could jump in, Kathy, we sort of talked about this a little bit before the show. You know, we talked a lot about franchise dealers and folks working for franchise dealers. Is this something that why aren't independent dealers? There's a lot of independent dealers. I'm related to folks that are independent dealers. So why are independent dealers doing these similar things as well?
I think there is a definitely a budget constraint with an independent dealer. You know, if it's, and when I say independent, those are typically like a used car lot. If it's a, you know, if it's a bigger operation, then they've got some budget. But just getting them acclimated to things like ideas like content marketing is very, it's one of those kind of hard things to get over. It's a pretty big challenge. I usually talk to them about Facebook ads. That seems to be a common ground that they can kind of connect on. And then, of course, there's a personnel issue because some independents are just a guy and maybe one other person. So there really, I think, is a big challenge there for an independent, either an independent used car dealer or even a independent repair shop. Same idea. I'm just finding the adoption of social very, very slow. Very slow.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, it's been really great having you on the show and talking about this. I think there's a lot of similarities across most businesses that fit in with this, especially businesses that have small franchises or individuals that are going to be moving around a lot. Thanks. This was a really great insight. Why don't you let people know where they can find you?
My website is cruisecontrolinc.com. My name, Kruse, and then control, and then inc.com. Find me on Twitter, Kathy Cruz, and I'm on Facebook. I'm everywhere. So
she's cruising around.
That's
around.
right.
She hasn't heard that before.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And this is the part of the show where we go on to shares, where we kind of bring things that we've found interesting and, you know, just open for discussion. And you're welcome to pitch in on that as well. I know, Steve, you've got something that you've been dying to share from The Verge.
That's actually my link.
Oh, Adam, I'm sorry.
But Steve might have something from The Verge as well.
I'm sure Steve has something to say about it. So why don't you start, Adam?
You take it, Adam. Go ahead.
No, Steve, please. You first.
Please, after you.
No, so this is going to be sort of goofy for, you know, we always have some I don't know. I think it's because the topic is Snapchat. Okay, all right, we're getting a little teenager-ish on us here, but something happened recently where Snapchat has done a quite a big makeover on their app. I don't know, last week. And quite honestly, Snapchat was one of those things that I checked out early on, really briefly, didn't find a lot of use for it personally, and in fact, very much thought that it's think of it as Instagram in a way, where sharing a photo or sharing a video, but that that somebody can only see those photos or videos for anything from 1 to 10 seconds. You designate it, and then they self-destruct like Mission Impossible. Okay. And the reputation is that that's getting used for a lot of sort of sexting of teens using it for that sort of thing, young adults using it for that sort of thing, so that they kind of cover their tracks. The latest update has made me look at it again as something that's not only cool just for somebody to use to communicate, but also for actually brands to use, actually. And I still think that the audience is still very much focused along that young adults, teens demographic. But a couple quick reasons why I think the updates, with their latest update, what they've done is they've really beefed out the communication part of the tool. So now, instead of just only doing photos and video, sort of these self-destruct photos and video, you can actually chat. So you can use it as a text messaging platform, which wasn't a part of it before. So if somebody sends a photo, you can actually start an ongoing one-on-one conversation with folks. Then the second thing is that if the person is actually on the application at the same time as you can actually do a live real-time video conversation a la Skype. And so those two elements, in addition to a couple other bells and whistles, has actually made it what I believe more sticky in the communication side. It's something that people, I think, are going to pay more attention to and use as even more of a primary chatting application instead of just coming to Snapchat for photos and videos. But what I've been observing is something that's actually been a part of Snapchat for a while, which is these ongoing the stories that can be shared on Snapchat. And you got to have to dive in and check out what Snapchat stories are. But essentially, brands have been using these lately to to engage with their customers. So I've been watching Taco Bell, for instance, and Grubhub use them to engage with their fans on a daily basis and send out these essentially slide-by-slide stories that that live in a person's profile for a 24-hour period, but engage with folks. I guess what I'm saying is check out the link that we have in the show notes and see what the updates are to Snapchat, and follow a number of brands like Acura, Taco Bell, McDonald's, Grubhub, and see what they are doing on a daily basis and how they're engaging with folks using Snapchat. I actually think we're going to see an uptick in people who are using Snapchat due to their latest update.
I've been interested in it for a little while, in the sense that I wanted to check it out because I knew that brands were doing more interesting things with it. And it was actually just the other day Adam started talking about what he'd seen, and you included, I think it was Taco Bell or somebody, had done some kind of a, here's the photo, doodle on it, send it back, and they'll pick a winner.
Exactly.
So actually I just downloaded it last night. I had trouble actually using it because they wanted to send a verification text to me while I was downloading on my phone. And when I went out to get the text number, it then somehow screwed it up so I couldn't log back in. It would say, "Oh, that your ID's already taken," and it wouldn't let me log in. So that was a little frustrating.
You've been rejected by Snapchat.
Apparently, old guy.
So I'm showing on the video, for instance, Grubhub, that use the doodle tool. The doodle tool, essentially, on any photo you can draw whatever. They've got a little color palette and a very simple drawing tool to allow you to add some fun things and captions and stuff. And so, for instance, for Cinco de Mayo, Grubhub sent out a whole series of photos of them all grabbing these virtually drawn tacos, and not stereotypical stuff at all for Cinco de Mayo, but related to food nonetheless, because they're Grubhub. I don't know how many people are engaging with it because I'm not on their end, and you can't see, for instance, on Facebook, comments and likes cascading under each piece of content. But I thought it was quite interesting nonetheless. Janet,
isn't that kind of the downside? Is that from a traditional marketer standpoint, you want to see some kind of metrics and engagement, and to be able to, what are they going to do with that data? And even though it's kind of fun, if other people can't see it too, is it really useful?
Right. There's no conversation happening because it's a one-to-one-to-one, even though it's a one-to-many, but the many can't see what conversation is happening. Right. It's like on Twitter, you can see how many people have retweeted a particular tweet and sort of joined the conversation. I agree with that. I think the real differentiator with Snapchat is, and to be honest, the turnoff for me is that these images self-destruct. But because now they don't live very long. It's like putting a magazine up for 12 months and then it's taken down. It doesn't continue to have a life of its own for any given time. But I think that the reason it's something to take a look at is because it's actually so widely used by a particular audience. So bottom line is there's a large enough audience that is using it that you can take advantage of it. And in addition to that, I think in the future, Snapchat, if they can find a way to remove the option, like say remove the self-destruct mechanism if you choose to. So hey, maybe I want to send out this thing and I want it to live as long as it's out there. I think if they were to play around with something like that, they might add another layer.
Doesn't that just become a text again? I mean, isn't the whole point of Snapchat? I mean, isn't their value proposition the fact that it doesn't live on the internet, and that's why some young people stopped using Facebook and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I would agree.
Steve, I know you've got a share as well.
Yeah, I was just it's interesting. One of the things that there's I do B2B tech clients for most of my demand generation, content marketing stuff, and I've always been surprised at people, even B2B marketers, while they're conservative as a group, they all want to kind of do stuff that's cutting edge, and it's like and they don't necessarily think more kind of holistically about their what they're doing. And so the Steam Feed, they do a lot of great content over there. Did an article just on a couple days ago called 3 research-backed content marketing insights you should know. And what was interesting specifically was one of the pieces of data was about B2B buyers' most commonly consumed content types, and it was like percentage, respondents indicating that vendor collateral types they had consumed to evaluate a technology purchase during the last 6 months. And it's not terribly shocking, but it's clear that like white papers is 49, product brochures and data sheets are 46, case studies, success stories 36, data guides, implementation scenarios 36, videos 35, which actually is a little higher than I'm glad to see that high. I'm a little surprised a little bit, but customer magazine publications, and so these are kind of things. In webinars and blog articles are all like go down about 29% and drop, and it kind of drops off from there. So that not a lot of shock, but it really shows that when you do have a complex sell, because when people are buying something for a company, that what they're buying is they want the product to be good, but the risk is their job. And that's not an overstatement. People are worried. You buy a $100,000 or $200,000 or $1 million piece of something, and it's not right. You're not going to get a promotion. You may be looking for a new job. But the second piece of that, which is interesting, is that the buyers wanted to find content through search, and so that for them there is something. So here you have people talk about people don't believe the vendors. But these people do consume this content a lot, this from vendors, and they really want to find it through search. So it doesn't negate wanting you should still do pay-per-click or other kinds of paid media to promote stuff. But you really need to think about your content. It's not just like, let's create a huge white paper, let's create a huge buying guide. There's a concept that I really like is flexible content. I have for a while, and I've bored the spit out of Adam and Janet saying this, but I really believe that content should be consumable in any format that you want at any time that you want. So when I create content, I want to create, like we do this show live, but this will become a YouTube video, so now it's on demand. That same content, if structured correctly, you could then make that into, you can rip that audio, make a podcast. You can then also break that up and have it transcribed or write from stuff, and write 3 or 4 or 5 blog posts from that content. And then you could also take highlights, put it in a SlideShare. And so it's not about just repackaging or repurposing this stuff. It's about making it flexible media for consumption when people want it. And just again, when you do that, you have the SEO power behind it, especially if you're leveraging multiple platforms, like we do on this show, because you can find us on Spreaker and YouTube and Google Plus and Friday Hangout. But anyway, we'll post that article. But just when you really think about it, make sure that you're not just repackaging it, but you're thinking about projects in the larger context. So you create all these different pieces so people can find it organically and consume it the way they want to.
There you go, and we'll share that link on the blog post as well as soon as Steve pastes it in the comments. And gee, Steve, you already stole my thunder. Just so that you know how you can find us, you can find the Friday Hangout at the blog, thefridayhangout.com. You can watch us live on Google Plus, right here on this events page. You can watch us on YouTube. You can listen to the podcast on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. And we'd love for you to do that and leave comments and let us know what you'd like to see in future shows. There's even a form on the website to let us know if you want to join us. I want to thank Kathy again. This was a great show. I tweeted out to Mike the car guy, so if he sends you flowers, you'll know why. It was really great to have you on the show, and I really appreciate it.
It was great being here. Thanks for having me.
I love having the shows where we sort of dive into not just the general topic, but like we talk specifically about the automotive industry. So I mean, when we take those deep dives into something like this, it's always very, very cool. So thanks again.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the content that we talk about is very applicable to a lot of other industries too. Maybe give some people ideas about what they can do with their situation.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.